My husband's charity work was him giving our money to his ex-wife. I opened my laptop during lunch on a Tuesday, planning to reconcile our joint account after noticing we'd been running lower than usual. And that's when I saw it. A recurring transfer for $2,000 labeled program donation. The date matched the third Saturday of every month, right around the time Adrian claimed he volunteered downtown with at-risk teens. I clicked through to the previous month. Same transfer, same label. I went back further. January, December, November. Every single month, $2,000 leaving our account, and I couldn't remember ever authorizing it. I called Adrian from my desk at work, keeping my voice level even though my hand shook around the phone. Hey, quick question, I said. I'm looking at our account and there's a monthly donation going out to your mentorship program. Did we talk about that? He paused, just a fraction of a second too long. Oh yeah, the nonprofit needed consistent funding to keep the facility open. I thought I mentioned it. For how much? $2,000 a month. It's tax deductible, and honestly, these kids need it more than we do. His voice had that rehearsed smoothness, the same tone he used when explaining why he'd miss my sister's wedding or my dad's birthday dinner. Dedicated, apologetic, firm. Right, I said. That makes sense. I hung up and pulled every statement we had going back 2 years. $48,000. Gone. All to something called Metro Youth Pathways Initiative, an organization I'd never heard him name specifically until I searched his emails later that night. I found exactly 3 messages referencing it, all from an account that looked legitimate at first glance, but had no website, no social media, no board members listed anywhere online. The address on the emails led to a UPS store in a strip mall 30 miles away. Adrian came home that evening smelling like cologne and carrying takeout, the same ritual he followed every Saturday. He set the bags on the counter and kissed my forehead. How was your day? He asked. Fine, busy. I watched him unpack containers of pad thai, his movements relaxed, unhurried. He talked about a kid named Corey who'd apparently started applying to colleges, about how rewarding it felt to see progress. His face glowed with that satisfied exhaustion he always wore on Saturdays, the look I used to admire because I thought it meant he was doing something bigger than himself. That's great, I said, taking my plate to the table. Really great. That night, I lay awake beside him, listening to him breathe in the dark. His phone sat charging on the nightstand, screen down, password protected since last year when he said he wanted more privacy after a work security scare. I used to think that made sense. Now I wondered what else made sense only because I'd never questioned it. I waited until his breathing deepened into sleep, then slipped out of bed and went to the guest room. I opened my laptop and searched for private investigators in our area, filtering by reviews, by discretion, by people who specialized in financial infidelity. I found one with a former forensic accounting background and sent an inquiry through their encrypted contact form. 3 years of Saturdays. 3 years of admiring his dedication while he funneled our money somewhere I couldn't see. I didn't know yet what Metro Youth Pathways Initiative really was, but I knew it wasn't a nonprofit. And I knew that whatever Adrian had been doing every weekend, it wasn't mentoring kids. The only question left was whether I wanted to hear his explanation or his confession, and I was done listening to scripts. The investigator's name was Brennan, and he called me 2 days after I'd sent the inquiry. His voice was flat, procedural, the kind that had delivered bad news enough times to strip out sympathy. I can start surveillance this weekend, he said. Standard package includes photo documentation, location tracking, and a preliminary financial trace if you provide account access. How long does it usually take? Depends what we're looking for. Infidelity? 2 weeks, maybe 3. Financial fraud tied to a third party? Sometimes faster. People get comfortable in their patterns. I gave him Adrian's schedule, the recurring Saturday timeline, and screenshots of the bank transfers. I also sent him the email address for Metro Youth Pathways Initiative, though I already knew it would lead nowhere. Brennan said he'd have something for me within 10 days. I hung up and stared at my phone, feeling the weight of what I just set in motion. There was no walking it back now. Either Adrian was exactly who he said he was and I just hired someone to confirm my paranoia, or I was about to see something I couldn't unsee. That night, Adrian asked if I wanted to watch a movie. We sat on opposite ends of the couch, a bowl of popcorn between us that neither of us touched. He scrolled through options while I pretended to pay attention, but all I could think about was Saturday, about Brennan somewhere out there with a camera, waiting. You've been quiet lately, Adrian said, pausing on some thriller I'd never heard of. Just work stress. Anything I can help with? I looked at him. His face was open, concerned, the same expression he'd worn when my mom was in the hospital last year, when he'd held my hand through every update and told me it would be okay. That version of Adrian felt like someone I'd imagined. No, I said. I'll figure it out. He nodded and pressed play. I watched the screen without seeing it, counting hours until the weekend. Saturday morning came with the usual routine. Adrian woke early, showered, dressed in jeans and a hoodie that made him look younger, more casual. He poured coffee into a travel mug and grabbed his keys from the hook by the door. I'll be back around 4, he said, leaning in to kiss me. Love you. Love you too. I waited until his car disappeared down the street, then texted Brennan. He's on the move. 3 dots appeared, then vanished. I sat at the kitchen table with my own coffee, staring at my phone, refreshing my email even though Brennan had told me he wouldn't send updates in real time. The morning stretched out in a silence that felt like waiting for test results. I tried to distract myself. I did laundry, I cleaned the bathroom, I started meal prepping for the week, and gave up halfway through chopping vegetables because my hands wouldn't stop shaking. By noon I'd checked my phone 40 times. At 1:30 my screen lit up. Brennan's name. I answered before the second ring. I'm sending photos now, he said. You're going to want to sit down. The first image loaded slowly, pixel by pixel. Adrian standing outside a restaurant I recognized from downtown, but not the part of downtown where he claimed to volunteer. The next photo showed him holding the door open for someone. A woman, dark hair, tall, wearing a leather jacket and heels that made her legs look endless. The third photo was closer, clearer. Adrian's hand on her lower back as they walked inside. The fourth showed them at a table by the window, leaning toward each other, his hand covering hers. I scrolled faster. More restaurants, a coffee shop, the woman getting into Adrian's car, the two of them outside an apartment building I didn't recognize. The timestamps spanned from 9 in the morning to nearly 3 in the afternoon. Brennan's voice cut through the static in my head. I ran a reverse image search on her face and cross-referenced the apartment address with public records. Name Simone Calloway. Does that mean anything to you? It took me a second to breathe. That's his ex-wife. Thought it might be. I'm also running financials now, but based on the account activity you gave me, I'd I'd bet the transfers are going directly to her. Rent, car payments, credit cards. It's a common setup. Keeps the payments looking legitimate if anyone asks. I stared at the photo of them at the restaurant. Adrian was smiling, relaxed, the same expression he wore when he came home on Saturdays and told me about Corey and the other kids who didn't exist. How long do you need to confirm the financials? I asked. Another week, maybe less. But from what I'm seeing, this has been going on a while. The patterns are too clean. 3 years, I said. He's been doing this since we got married. Brennan didn't respond right away. When he did, his voice had softened, just barely. I'll have a full report ready by Friday. Photos, locations, financial trail, everything you'll need if you're planning to lawyer up. I am. Good, I'll be in touch. He hung up. I sat there staring at my phone, at the photo of Adrian with his hand on Simone's back, guiding her through a door like she was someone worth protecting. 3 years of Saturdays, 3 years of missed birthdays and holidays, and moments I'd told myself didn't matter because he was out doing something good. I'd built a version of my husband that didn't exist, and he'd let me, because it was easier than telling the truth. I forwarded the photos to my personal email, then deleted the thread from my phone. Adrian would be home in 2 hours. I had just enough time to figure out how to look at him without letting him see that I already knew. I spent the rest of Saturday in the living room with my laptop, going through every bank statement I could access. I opened spreadsheets I hadn't looked at in months, clicked through transactions I'd assumed were mundane. The $2,000 transfers had been there the whole time, buried among mortgage payments and utility bills, labeled just vaguely enough that I'd never questioned them. Program donation, community fund, youth initiative support, all of them going to the same account, an external transfer that never came back. I pulled up 3 years of records. $72,000, not 48. I'd miscounted the first time, missed the months where he'd sent extra, the times he'd written it off as emergency funding in the memo line. Adrian came home at 4:15, later than usual. He walked in smiling, keys jangling, still wearing that hoodie that made him look like someone's good-hearted older brother. Hey, he said, dropping his bag by the door. How was your day? Fine. He moved toward the kitchen. I heard the fridge open, the clink of a bottle, the sound of him drinking water like this was just another Saturday. Did you eat? He called. Not yet. He came back into the living room, leaning against the doorway. Want me to order something? I'm starving. I looked up from the laptop. He was watching me with that easy, open expression, the one that said he had nothing to hide. I wanted to scream. I wanted to throw the laptop at him. Instead, I smiled. Sure, whatever you want. He ordered Thai food, and we ate on the couch while he told me about his day. A kid named Anthony who'd finally opened up about his home life. Another kid, Corey, who'd been struggling with math but was starting to get it. He talked with his hands, animated, the way he always did when he thought he was making a difference. I nodded in the right places. I asked follow-up questions. I played the role I'd been playing for 3 years, the supportive wife who believed every word. When he went to bed that night, I stayed up. I opened my email and read through every message Brennan had sent. The photos were worse the second time. Adrian and Simone at a wine bar, her laughing at something he'd said. Adrian carrying shopping bags out of a boutique I'd walked past 100 times. Adrian outside her apartment building at 11 at night, his hand on her waist as he leaned in to kiss her cheek. I printed everything. Bank statements, Venmo receipts, photos. I organized them in a folder I kept in my car, hidden under the passenger seat where Adrian would never think to look. By Monday, I'd contacted a divorce attorney. Her name was Renata Cross, and her office was downtown, 20 minutes from where Adrian supposedly volunteered. She had good reviews, a reputation for handling high-asset cases, and a consultation fee I paid without hesitation. I met her Tuesday morning, told her I had a work meeting, and drove to her office with the folder on the seat beside me. She was younger than I expected, mid-40s, sharp in a way that felt efficient rather than cold. She listened while I laid out the timeline, the bank transfers, the fake nonprofit, the photos of Adrian with Simone. She didn't interrupt. She took notes in tight, precise handwriting. When I finished, she leaned back in her chair. How much are we talking total? $72,000 over 3 years. And you had no knowledge of these transfers? None. I thought he was donating to a nonprofit. She nodded, flipping through the bank statements I'd printed. This is dissipation of marital assets. He used joint funds to support a third party without your knowledge or consent. In court, that's going to work in your favor. We can argue he depleted marital resources for personal reasons unrelated to the marriage. Can I get it back? We can ask for reimbursement, yes. Whether the judge orders full repayment depends on how the assets are divided, but this strengthens your position significantly, especially with documentation this thorough. She asked about property, retirement accounts, debts. I answered everything, my voice steady, clinical. It felt less like describing my marriage and more like itemizing a failed investment. One more thing, Renata said. Does he know you're here? No. Good. Keep it that way until we're ready to file. If he suspects you're building a case, he'll start moving assets or covering his tracks. Right now, you have the advantage. I left her office with a retainer agreement and a timeline. She'd draft the divorce petition within the week. I'd review it, sign it, and then she'd serve Adrian at a time and place designed for maximum legal clarity and minimum emotional theatrics. Probably at work. Probably on a weekday, when he'd have no choice but to accept the papers and move on with his day. I drove home feeling lighter and heavier at the same time. That night, Adrian asked if I wanted to go out for dinner. I said I was tired. He suggested a movie instead, something we could watch at home, low-key. I agreed because refusing would have raised questions, and I wasn't ready for questions yet. We sat on the couch again, closer this time because he'd reached for my hand halfway through the opening credits. His thumb traced circles on my palm, a gesture that used to feel comforting and now felt like performance. You seem off lately, he said during a quiet scene. Everything okay? Just work, I said. Big project coming up. Anything I can do? I looked at him. His face was soft in the glow of the TV, concerned, present. I wondered if Simone ever saw this version of him, or if she only got the version that paid her rent and took took her to brunch. No, I said. I've got it handled. He squeezed my hand. Let me know if that changes. I nodded and turned back to the screen, counting the days until Renata filed the papers. By Thursday, Brennan sent his final report. It was 30 pages, single-spaced, with an appendix of photos organized by date and location. He'd traced the Venmo payments back to the month after Adrian and I got married. Rent, car payments, credit card minimums, a gym membership, groceries. Simone's entire life, funded by my husband, pulled from an account I'd contributed to every month without knowing where the money was really going. The report included a section on her background. Simone Calloway, age 38, worked in marketing for a mid-sized firm downtown. No criminal record. No debt in her own name because Adrian had been covering it all. She lived in a one-bedroom apartment in a building with a doorman and a rooftop pool. The rent was $2,400 a month. I read the report twice, then printed a copy for Renata and saved the digital file in 3 separate locations. Friday morning, I got the draft petition. Dissolution of marriage. Irreconcilable differences. Request for equitable distribution of assets and reimbursement for dissipated funds. I read through every line, signed where Renata had flagged, and sent it back. We'll serve him Monday, she said when I called to confirm. After that, the clock starts. He'll have 30 days to respond. And if he tries to negotiate, he can try. But given the evidence, I'd advise against accepting anything less than full accountability. You're not the one who needs to compromise here. I hung up and sat in my car outside Renata's office, staring at the building across the street. Adrian would be served in 3 days. 3 days until everything I'd been holding in my chest for the past 2 weeks became real, public, irreversible. I started the engine and drove home, where Adrian was probably already planning what to cook for dinner, still thinking tomorrow was just another Saturday. Monday, I woke up at 6 and couldn't fall back asleep. Adrian's alarm went off at 7. He showered, dressed, made coffee. I watched him move through the kitchen like it was any other morning, pouring cereal, scrolling his phone, humming something under his breath. You're up early, he said. Couldn't sleep. He kissed the top of my head on his way out. Try to relax today, you've been stressed. The door clicked shut. I counted to 30, then texted Renata. He just left for work. Process server will be there by 9:30. I spent the next 2 hours cleaning the house. I vacuumed rooms that didn't need it, wiped counters that were already spotless, reorganized the pantry. My hands needed something to do that wasn't checking my phone every 40 seconds. At 9:40, Renata called. He's been served. How did he react? Shocked. Asked the server if there'd been a mistake. Then he asked for your number, like he didn't already have it. I thanked her and hung up. My phone stayed silent for 6 minutes. Then Adrian's name lit up the screen. I didn't answer. He called twice more before 10. Then the text started. What is this? Call me right now. I don't understand what's happening. I turned my phone face down and went upstairs to pack. I'd already decided I wasn't staying in the house while this played out. My sister had a guest room 20 minutes south, and she'd offered it without asking questions when I told her I needed space. Adrian came home at 11:15. I heard his car in the driveway, the front door slamming, his footsteps heavy and fast. Where are you? I came down the stairs with an overnight bag. He was standing in the entryway holding the divorce petition. His face red, his tie loosened. What the hell is this? He waved the papers. You filed for divorce? Yes. Without talking to me? Without even telling me you were upset? I set the bag down. I tried talking to you 2 weeks ago. You said it was a donation. It was a donation. I was helping someone. You were funding your ex-wife's entire life, with our money, for 3 years. He opened his mouth, closed it, looked down at the papers like they might explain themselves. Who told you that? Does it matter? Yes, it matters. Someone's been lying to you. Simone and I are not together. I've been helping her because she's been struggling, and I didn't want to see her lose everything after the divorce. That's it. That's the whole story. Then why lie about it? I didn't lie. I just didn't tell you because I knew you'd react like this. Like what? Like someone who deserves to know where $72,000 of our money went? His face changed. The anger softened into something more calculated, more careful. He set the papers on the entry table and stepped closer. Drag me into what? Her rent? Her car payments? The spa weekend you told me was a work conference? His jaw tightened. Who's feeding you this information? I hired an investigator. You hired a... He stopped, ran a hand through his hair, laughed once, sharp and bitter. You've been spying on me. You've been lying to me. I was trying to do the right thing. For who? For Simone, for us, for everyone. Except you didn't do the right thing. You did the selfish thing. You wanted to feel like a hero, and you used my money to do it. He stepped back, shaking his head. This is insane. You're overreacting. Overreacting. Yes, you're blowing this completely out of proportion. I helped someone who needed it. That doesn't make me a bad person. It makes me someone who cares. I picked up my bag. If you cared, you would have asked. You would have told me the truth. You would have treated me like a partner instead of an obstacle. Where are you going? Somewhere I don't have to listen to you rewrite history. He followed me to the door. If you leave right now, you're making this worse. We can fix this. We can sit down and talk it through like adults. I tried talking. You lied. I didn't lie. I just didn't tell you everything. That's the same thing. It's not. I opened the door. He grabbed my wrist, not hard but firm enough to stop me. Don't walk away from me right now. I looked at his hand, then at his face. Let go. He did, but he didn't move. I'm asking you to stay and have a conversation. That's all. Just talk to me. I have nothing left to say to you. I walked to my car. He stood in the doorway, still holding the divorce papers, watching me load my bag into the trunk. This is a mistake, he called. You're going to regret this. I didn't answer. I got in the car and drove. My sister's place was small, neat, quiet. She made tea and sat with me at her kitchen table while I explained everything. She didn't interrupt. She didn't offer advice. She just listened, and when I finished, she said, "You're doing the right thing." That night, Adrian texted again. "I'm sorry. I know I messed up, but we can fix this. Please come home so we can talk." I didn't respond. The next morning, he sent flowers to my sister's house. 2 dozen roses with a card that said, "I love you. Let's work this out." I threw them away. Wednesday, he called my work. My assistant told him I was unavailable. He called twice more before noon, and she stopped putting him through. Thursday, Renata emailed me a copy of Adrian's response to the petition. He was contesting the dissipation claim, arguing that the transfers were charitable contributions made in good faith, and that I had constructive knowledge of the transactions because they appeared on joint account statements. Renata's reply was 4 sentences. His argument won't hold. The burden of proof is on him to show you had actual knowledge and consented to the use of marital funds for a third party's personal benefit. The fact that the transactions were labeled as nonprofit donations undermines his good faith claim. We're in a strong position. Friday, Adrian showed up at my sister's house. I was in the guest room when the doorbell rang. My sister answered, and I heard his voice through the door. I need to talk to her. She doesn't want to see you. I'm her husband. Not for long. Please, just 5 minutes. That's all I'm asking. My sister didn't move. She'll reach out if she wants to talk. Until then, you need to leave. I'm not leaving until I see her. I opened the door and walked into the hallway. Adrian looked at me like I'd just saved his life. Thank you, he said. I just need a few minutes. You have one. Can we talk in private? No. It is worse than it sounds. I'm not asking you to forgive me right now. I'm just asking you to pause this process long enough for us to try counseling. We've been together for 5 years. That has to count for something. It did until you spent 3 of those years lying to me. I wasn't lying, I was protecting you. From what? From feeling like I was choosing her over you. Because I wasn't. I chose you. I married you. I built a life with you. Simone was just someone I felt responsible for. Responsible enough to pay her rent. Responsible enough to take her on trips. Responsible enough to hide it all from me. I never took her on trips. There are photos, Adrian. You were at a spa resort in Lancaster the same weekend you told me you were at a sales conference. His face went pale. That was a work thing. Simone was there because she was consulting on a project. Try again. He stared at me, and I watched the lie collapse in real time. The way his shoulders dropped, the way his mouth opened, and nothing came out. Your minute's up, I said. He didn't argue. He turned and walked back to his car, and I watched him drive away for the second time that week. Saturday, I drove back to the house while Adrian was at the gym. I needed files, tax returns, account statements, anything Renata hadn't already pulled from the bank. The house felt different now, like I was trespassing in a place I used to own. I went upstairs to his office. The desk drawers were locked, which was new. I used the spare key from the kitchen junk drawer and started pulling folders. Tax returns going back 5 years, investment account summaries, a manila envelope labeled personal that held nothing but receipts from restaurants I'd never been to. I photographed everything with my phone and put it all back exactly how I'd found it. When I got back to my sister's place, I forwarded the photos to Renata with a note. Found these in his desk. Not sure if they're useful. She called 10 minutes later. These are very useful. How useful? He claimed the transfers were donations, right? Charitable contributions made in good faith? That's what his response said. These receipts show personal expenses. Dinners, gifts, hotel stays. None of this is tax deductible. None of this looks like charity. It looks like he was maintaining a relationship. Can we use that? Absolutely. It contradicts his entire defense. I'm going to file a motion to compel full financial disclosure. He'll have to produce every bank record, every credit card statement, every Venmo transaction for the last 3 years. How long will that take? 2 weeks, maybe 3. Depends on how cooperative he wants to be. Adrian wasn't cooperative. Renata called me Wednesday afternoon. He's refusing to produce the records. Says they're protected under privacy laws. Can he do that? Not in a divorce case. The judge will compel him. It just means we have to wait for a hearing. When's the hearing? Week after next. I thanked her and hung up. My phone buzzed a minute later. Adrian, we need to talk. I didn't respond. He called twice, then texted again. I know you're getting legal advice. I know someone's telling you to fight this, but you don't have to. We can settle this privately. No lawyers, no court, just us. I forwarded the text to Renata. Her reply was immediate. Do not engage. He's trying to avoid discovery. I didn't engage. Thursday, my mother called. Adrian stopped by the house. What did he want? He wanted me to talk to you. He said you're not answering his calls and he's worried about you. I'm fine. He seemed very upset. He should be. She paused. He said you hired a private investigator. I did. Is that really necessary? Yes. I just think, Mom, I don't want to talk about this. I'm not taking sides. I'm just saying that marriage is hard and sometimes people make mistakes. And maybe you should think about whether this is something you can forgive. He didn't make a mistake. He made a choice. Over and over for 3 years. I know. I just don't want you to do something you'll regret. I won't, she sighed. Okay, I'm here if you need me. I hung up and turned my phone off for the rest of the day. The hearing was scheduled for the following Tuesday at 9. Renata told me I didn't need to be there, but I wanted to be. I wanted to see his face when the judge ordered him to hand over everything he'd been hiding. The courtroom was small, plain, fluorescent. Adrian sat at a table with his attorney, a man in a gray suit who looked like he billed by the breath. Renata and I sat across the aisle. Adrian looked at me once, then looked away. The judge was a woman in her 50s with reading glasses and no patience. She skimmed the motion, looked at Adrian's attorney and said, "Counselor, your client is refusing to produce financial records in a dissolution proceeding? Your Honor, my client has privacy concerns. The records in question contain sensitive personal information that has no bearing on the division of marital assets. The records show transfers from a joint account. That makes them marital records. Your client doesn't get to claim privacy when he's spending marital funds. Your Honor, the transfers were charitable donations. My client has already provided documentation showing receipts for dinners and hotel stays aren't charitable donations, Counselor. They're personal expenses. And if your client can't explain where $72,000 went, then the court is going to assume it was dissipated. And that assumption won't work in his favor." Adrian's attorney opened his mouth, then closed it. The judge looked at Adrian. "Mr. Hale, you have 7 days to produce complete financial records for the last 3 years. Bank statements, credit card statements, Venmo, PayPal, Cash App, everything. If you don't comply, I'll hold you in contempt and I'll award your wife 100% of the disputed funds. Do you understand?" Adrian nodded. "I need a verbal response." "Yes, Your Honor." "Good, we're adjourned." Outside the courthouse, Adrian caught up to me in the parking lot. "Can we please talk?" I kept walking. "I'm trying to fix this. I'm trying to do the right thing." I stopped and turned. The right thing would have been not lying in the first place. I know I messed up, but I'm asking you to give me a chance to make it right. You had 3 years to make it right. You chose not to. I was scared. I didn't know how to tell you. So you just kept lying. I wasn't lying. I was just, Adrian, stop. Every time you open your mouth, you make it worse. He ran a hand over his face. What do you want from me? I want you to comply with the court order. I want you to stop pretending you're the victim. I want you to leave me alone. I'm not pretending. I'm trying to save our marriage. There's nothing left to save. He stared at me, and I saw something shift in his expression. The desperation faded. What replaced it was colder. You're going to regret this, he said. You already said that. I mean it. You think you're going to walk away with everything, but you're not. I've been talking to my attorney, and he says, I don't care what he says. The judge just told you to produce records or lose everything. That's not a negotiation. That's a consequence. You're enjoying this. I'm not enjoying anything. I'm just done pretending you're someone you're not. I got in my car and drove away. My hands were shaking, but my head was clear. That night, Renata emailed me. He's filing for an extension. Says he needs more time to gather records. Will the judge allow it? Maybe, but it won't change the outcome. He's stalling because he knows what those records will show. How long can he stall? Not long. A week, maybe 2. After that, the judge will compel production or rule against him. Good. I closed the laptop and sat in the dark for a while. My sister knocked softly and asked if I wanted tea. I said yes, and we sat at her kitchen table without talking. The silence felt like progress. Adrian's attorney filed for a 2-week extension. The judge granted 1 week. 7 days later, a courier delivered a box to Renata's office. Bank statements, credit card records, Venmo transactions, all printed and organized in labeled folders. Renata called me that afternoon. He complied. And? It's worse than we thought. She told me to come to her office. I drove straight there. The conference room table was covered in paper. Renata had highlighters in 3 colors. Yellow for transfers, pink for cash withdrawals, blue for credit card charges. The patterns were everywhere. These are the transfers we already knew about, she said, tapping a yellow stack. $2,000 a month, sometimes more. But look at this. She slid a credit card statement across the table. Charges from hotels, spas, jewelry stores, all dated on weekends when Adrian said he was at conferences or visiting his brother. He used our joint credit card? Not always. Sometimes he used a personal card we didn't know about. But enough transactions went through the joint account that we can prove intent. Intent to do what? Defraud you, dissipate marital assets, take your pick. She pulled out another stack. These are Venmo receipts. He wasn't just transferring money from the bank. He was sending her cash directly, sometimes $500 at a time, labeled as loan or help or because you asked. I looked at the dates. Some of them were from our anniversary. One was from my birthday. How much total? $72,000 from the joint account. Another $18,000 from credit cards and Venmo. $90,000 total. I sat down. There's more, Renata said. He created fake invoices. Look, she showed me a printout of an email Adrian had sent himself from a Gmail account that didn't belong to anyone. The email had an attached invoice from something called Pathways Youth Mentorship Foundation, requesting a donation of $2,000. The invoice had a logo, a mailing address, even a tax ID number. I ran the tax ID, Renata said. It doesn't exist. The address is a UPS store. The whole thing is fabricated. Why would he do that? To cover himself. If you ever asked, he could show you the invoice and say he was being responsible. He probably thought you'd never look closely enough to check. He was right, I didn't. That's not your fault. You trusted him. I stared at the papers. What does this mean for the case? It means we have proof of fraud. It means the judge is going to rule in your favor. It means Adrian is going to pay. How much? Half of what he gave away at minimum. $45,000. Maybe more depending on how the judge interprets dissipation. And you'll keep the house, the car, and the savings account. What about his retirement? That gets split 50-50 unless we can prove he used it to fund the transfers. I'm still looking into that. I nodded. My chest felt tight, but I kept my voice steady. When's the trial? 3 weeks, but I think we can settle before then. I don't want to settle. She looked at me. You sure? I want him to sit in that courtroom and explain himself. I want a judge to hear what he did. I want it on record. Okay, then we go to trial. Adrian tried to call me twice that week. I didn't answer. He sent a text saying he wanted to explain that things weren't what they looked like, that Renata was twisting the evidence. I forwarded it to Renata and blocked his number. My mother called again. Adrian's attorney reached out to me. He said they want to settle. I know. Are you going to? No. Why not? Because settling means I agree to stay quiet. I'm done staying quiet. She sighed. I just don't want this to get uglier than it already is. It's already ugly. I'm just making sure everyone sees it. The trial was set for a Thursday morning. Renata and I arrived early. The courtroom was the same one from the hearing. Small, plain, too bright. Adrian and his attorney were already seated. Adrian looked thinner. His suit didn't fit right. The judge entered and we stood. She sat, we sat, and she looked at both attorneys. This is a dissolution hearing with disputed asset dissipation. Counselor, you're representing the petitioner? Renata stood. Yes, Your Honor. And you're representing the respondent? Adrian's attorney stood. Yes, Your Honor. Let's begin. Renata laid it out piece by piece. The bank transfers, the fake invoices, the credit card charges, the Venmo receipts. She had everything organized in a binder with tabs and highlighted sections. She walked the judge through the timeline, showing how the payments started 2 months after Adrian and I got married and continued every month for 3 years. Your Honor, the respondent claimed these were charitable donations made in good faith, but the evidence shows they were personal expenses paid to his ex-wife. Dinners, hotels, rent payments, car payments, credit card bills. None of this is charitable. All of it was hidden from my client. The judge looked at Adrian. Mr. Hale, do you dispute any of this? Adrian's attorney stood. Your Honor, my client acknowledges the transfers, but he maintains they were made out of compassion, not deception. His ex-wife was struggling financially, and he felt a moral obligation to help her. By lying to his current wife, he didn't lie, he simply didn't disclose. Counselor, that's the definition of lying. Adrian's attorney sat down. The judge looked at Adrian again. Mr. Hale, I'm going to ask you directly. Did you tell your wife you were donating money to a nonprofit? Adrian stood. Yes. And was that true? Not exactly. Not exactly or not at all? Not at all. Did you create fake invoices to support that story? I wanted to make sure everything looked legitimate. Legitimate to whom? To my wife. So you fabricated documents to deceive her? Adrian hesitated. I didn't see it that way. How did you see it? I saw it as protecting her from something she didn't need to worry about. By spending $90,000 of her money without her knowledge. It was our money. It was marital money, which means it belonged to both both of you, and you spent it unilaterally on another woman while lying about where it went. Is that accurate? Adrian didn't answer. Mr. Hale, I need a response. Yes. The judge leaned back. Here's what I'm seeing. You spent 3 years funneling money to your ex-wife while telling your current wife you were volunteering and donating to charity. You created fake invoices, fake emails, and fake explanations to cover your actions. You refused to disclose financial records until this court ordered you to. And now you're standing here telling me it was all done out of compassion. It was. Compassion doesn't require fraud, Mr. Hale. Compassion doesn't require lies. If you wanted to help your ex-wife, you could have had an honest conversation with your current wife and made a joint decision. You didn't do that. You chose deception. You chose betrayal. And now you're asking this court to excuse it. She looked at Renata. Counselor, what are you asking for? Reimbursement of $45,000, which is half of the total dissipated funds. Full ownership of the marital home. Full ownership of the joint savings account. And a ruling that the respondent's actions constitute fraud, so that he cannot claim these expenses as tax deductions or charitable contributions. The judge looked at Adrian's attorney. Do you have a counteroffer? Your Honor, my client is willing to reimburse $20,000 and agree to a 50-50 split of the home equity. That's not a counteroffer. That's an insult. She looked at Adrian. Mr. Hale, your actions meet the legal definition of dissipation of marital assets. You spent significant sums of money on a third party without your spouse's knowledge or consent. You concealed those expenditures through fraudulent documentation, and you continued the behavior for 3 years. The law is very clear about how courts handle this. She picked up her pen. I'm ruling in favor of the petitioner. You will reimburse her $45,000 within 90 days. She will retain full ownership of the marital home, the vehicle registered in both names, and the joint savings account. You will be responsible for any outstanding credit card debt accrued during the marriage. This ruling is final and non-negotiable. If you fail to comply, I will issue a wage garnishment order and hold you in contempt. She looked at Renata. Counselor, prepare the order. Yes, Your Honor. The judge stood. We're adjourned. Outside the courtroom, Adrian's attorney tried to approach Renata. She held up a hand. We're done talking. Adrian stood by his car, staring at nothing. I walked past him without looking. Renata called me that night. The order's been filed. He has 90 days. Will he pay? He'll pay. If he doesn't, we'll garnish his wages. Either way, you'll get your money. What about Simone? What about her? Does she know? I don't know, but I'd bet money she's already moved on. She was right. 2 weeks later, my sister showed me a Facebook post. Simone had updated her relationship status. She was dating someone new, someone with a better car and a bigger smile. Adrian wasn't tagged. He wasn't mentioned. He'd been erased. I didn't feel sorry for him. The first payment came 30 days later. $15,000, direct deposit into my personal account. The second came a month after that. The third came early. I used the first payment to replace the furniture Adrian had taken. I used the second to repaint the living room. The third went into savings. The house felt different now, lighter. The air didn't press down the way it used to. I changed the locks. I changed the alarm code. I planted flowers in the front yard. My mother came over one Saturday and helped me hang new curtains. She didn't ask about Adrian. She didn't mention forgiveness. She just handed me the curtain rod and held the ladder steady. Looks good, she said when we finished. It does. We stood in the living room and looked at the windows. Sunlight came through clean and warm. You doing okay? She asked. I'm getting there. She nodded. That's all you can do. I kept the last check. Didn't cash it right away. Just left it on the counter for a few days, looking at Adrian's signature every time I walked past. Then I deposited it and deleted the photo I'd taken of it for my records. That was 6 months ago. Now Saturdays are mine. I wake up when I want, make coffee without rushing, and work in the garden. Adrian always said he'd help with once things slowed down. They never did. The roses I planted last month are starting to bloom. My mother stopped asking if I was okay. She just shows up sometimes with groceries or a new plant she thought I'd like. My sister visits more. We sit on the porch and talk about anything except him. The bank account I check now is mine alone. The numbers go up, not down. Every deposit is something I earned. Every withdrawal something I chose. No surprises, no hidden lines, no explanations that don't add up. I saw Adrian once at a coffee shop near the courthouse. He was alone, staring at his phone. He didn't see me. I didn't say anything. There was nothing left to say. The house is quiet in a way it never was before. Not empty, just still. The kind of still that feels like rest instead of waiting. I'm not rebuilding trust. I'm building something better. Something that starts and ends with me.
Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and drop your favorite part in the comments. See you in the next one.